Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined by Jonathan Gibson from Burst the Bubble UK. Jonathan, it's great to finally sit down and speak to you. I've been following the work of Burst the Bubble for a while now, and I've been. It's so encouraging to me to see so many youth-led organisations such as yours do such important work. And one of the reasons that I started Demographica was to not only give help to give young people a platform and a voice, but also to collaborate with organisations like Burst the Bubble. So yeah, just props to you and all the work that you guys are doing because it's really incredible. Do you want to tell people sort of how you got started and what your motivations have been in the kinds of work that you do?
Sure. Thank you very much for a very warm intro, and for all the praise. It's been great, and we've really enjoyed it. So we actually started. We took an interesting story. We started about a year and a half ago. It was a springboard of a government program called NCS, and during the third week of that program, you have to create a social action type program, and you carry that out for 30 hours. And most groups normally don't continue with it, but our group actually got along really, really well, and we became really, really passionate. We initially actually started to look at the theme of interfaith, interestingly, because we were all sort of from different backgrounds, religions, and ethnicities, but we got along really well as a group. So that was something we wanted to look at. And then some people, obviously, after NCS, like left the groups and new people joined. We've met we met lots of really amazing people through that, and we have people now working throughout the UK with our organisation, and it's sort of all just gone from there. And it feels like it can give youth a platform and like lower the barriers to entry in this sort of like calling out about human rights abuses, etc., and speaking about topics that we're passionate about that I think is really, really needed. So throughout this, we've definitely grown in passion and energy for this organization, and we've got big things we hope to achieve. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that you started through NCS. That's really interesting. I did NCS as well, and we did a very our project was very localized. We ran a program helping provide support to homeless people in Dartford, where I'm from. And although some of us are still in touch, we didn't continue our program. So I think it's amazing that you continued that. Was that when you started it? Was it just in your local area the work that you were doing?
So we were like a digital group. So on the third week of
Okay.
MTS, what we decided to do was we had two interfaith events, one in a mosque and one at a synagogue, where we had like over 70 youth taking part in tours of the buildings, quizzes, and activities. And we also recorded three podcasts that week as well in the recording studio. So we did one on anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hate. We did one on religion in the modern world, and well, we think we did two on religion in the modern world actually. And we really enjoyed that, and we got a really, really good response. We got quite a lot of views as well. So from there we decided to carry on making platforms and making podcasts, and we've also expanded into, for example, making infographics and videos and doing events, etc. So all of those things we've learned a huge amount from and met some really great people.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that people check out your YouTube channel specifically. As I mean, I've watched your YouTube videos. Really, really interesting conversations. How many of you are there that work in?
So we've got about seven or eight on the main team, and then we've also got about 25 ambassadors at the moment across, I think, 12, like we've got across 12 different schools or something like that. And we're hopefully going to expand our ambassadorship program because we actually had a fantastic response. We can actually take all of them the first time round, and grow our organization so more youth can be have the opportunity to get involved in something like this. And we're going to launch another thing over the summer, another sort of scheme. Obviously, it's sometimes a bit difficult to balance with school, but hopefully, then we're going to give it a really big push and get far more youth involved. So that's the plan.
For sure. So I wanted to ask you about a topic that I think we're both incredibly passionate about, and was really the reason that I became aware of Burst the Bubble in the first place, which is the current Uyghur genocide, particularly the case of Ekpar Asat, who, I mean, I'd like you to elaborate a bit more on his story, if you may, in a second. I think if people follow Demographica, they'll know about what's currently occurring and the importance of tackling what's going on in the Xinjiang region at the moment. How did you kind of become this? I guess I don't know. Maybe that's a difficult question to ask, but how did you first become aware of what was going on, and then how have you been able to sort of push and grow to be? I think one of the most prominent voices against what's occurring at the moment.
Well, I think where I first became really passionate about this issue is It was a juxtaposition of two events I think that happened in my life. So the first was when I went to Poland with a youth organization, and I went to see some of the concentration camps in which my family were murdered and massacred in their millions. And I remember hearing there actually someone speak called Miroslava, and she spoke about how she wasn't a Jew, she was completely like secular person, just living in Poland, and she risked her life to save someone who was Jewish. And I found her story so inspiring because rather than just sort of obviously for obvious reasons, I mean it's scary to actually try and get involved and help people, particularly in those that sort of a scenario. But she actually took the initiative and didn't just sit back and be a bystander. And I think that's more relevant nowadays, or just as relevant nowadays, because it's so easy to just sort of do nothing and not speak out. And I think that's one of the things that made me really angry on that trip. The fact that I don't think we've learned our lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been 13 genocides since the Holocaust, and this is obviously one of them that's currently ongoing and the largest mass incarceration of an ethnic minority since the Holocaust. And so I think the fact that we need to learn that it's so important to actually speak out and stand up about what happened, and the fact that I knew my ancestors were in concentration camps, but the fact that they're still going on, concentration camps are still happening today, really, really shocked me and angered me. I remember hearing, I think the first, like, I was passionate about this because I remember reading about this and I went to actually a conference where I heard a very prominent Uyghur called Rahima Mahmoud speak and share her story, and that was very powerful. But then when you actually meet these people and actually talk to them and engage with them, it becomes something much, much more personal, and you become so emotionally connected to it. It's just unbelievable. And I would have never seen myself like beforehand necessarily just getting so passionate about this issue. But when you speak to these people and you hear their stories, it's so moving. And I know this is an experience as well that people in our organization have had when they've spoken to other Uyghurs, and it's just completely transformed the way they see this and their passion for this issue. And it's something that I would definitely recommend everyone to do, to hear testimonies, because it's so important and so powerful, and it will show you that we have to do something, we have to speak out. So that's probably where I became most passionate about this year, and that's just continued on.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I think that it's inspiring to listen to young people share these stories, but there doesn't it doesn't get more inspiring than listening to sort of first hand testimonies and learning the lessons from survivors. And it's one of the reasons that I think along with you I get so frustrated at the inaction from our government and from those in power. I mean, hopefully over the next few days more is starting to occur, which is great news. But it's so accessible now in this day and age to hear the stories of survivors of the Holocaust or of the genocide that's currently being committed in China or in Xinjiang. And I think that we do such a disservice to those who have passed away, who have died, who have been murdered, but also to those who have survived by not listening to their stories, not listening to their testimonies. And it's one of the things that I think you have done so well through Burst the Bubble, is raise the voices of those who have been impacted so awfully by what's gone on. Why do you think that the media and successive governments around the world have done such a poor job of holding the Chinese government to account, the CCP to account on this issue?
I think that's quite a big question. I think one reason for it is because Chinese are incredibly powerful. They're an incredibly powerful economy, and they have lots and lots of resources, lots of money, and lots of countries are incredibly interdependent with them. So there's lots of economic links. I mean, only recently we saw there was the EU-China trade deal, which is incredibly disappointing. I mean, we're doing trade we're actively promoting bilateral trade agreements with countries committing genocide. So it's difficult, and also we're just very slow to act. I mean, we've never ever classed actually according to regulation class a genocide when it's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's always after. And that's something I think we really need to change. And the Canadian government have done that. The UK government have not yet. I mean, there's a genocide amendment bill coming before the Commons in a couple, I think next week actually. So it's really pressing. And there's the link to the genocide response, which I'm sure you can attach on this video.
Absolutely.
And people should definitely sign to get their MPs to do this. But I think because China has so much money and so much soft power in terms of when it comes to international relations, they can really influence countries. I mean, none of the Muslim countries, unfortunately, also Muslim countries have spoken out against China. The IOC actually reported that China had like literally not been doing anything against Muslims, which is clearly not true. And it's unbelievable, part in parts because they owe China a lot of money, and so they're scared to get on the wrong side of them. And I think this is a real problem that's going to be facing the world today. And if we can't come together to deal with it, and as a unit stop being so lenient on countries just because they have massive economic power, then that's like going to be a massive problem. Another reason, for example, is because China's on the Security Council, so they can veto things,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
again a massive problem within the UN itself, and something that needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and like you say, there's a lot that we can do as individuals, such as write to our MPs, get them to try and support amendments like the one that you mentioned that's going through the House of Commons, and I'll link all of the information as to what people can do if they want to help in all the campaigns that are going on, both from yourself, from Yet Again, who are running really fantastic campaigns at the moment as well. Do you think that corporations have a role to play in this as well? I think that something else that we've seen is social media companies. A lot of talk about the role of social media companies in our democracy at the moment with what's gone on in America. Do you think that they have a role to play? Just the other day, the Chinese embassy in the United States released a string of tweets essentially talking about or boasting about the atrocities that they're committing. So simultaneously, in many ways, denying what is going on, but also talking about the benefits of what's going on Twitter. Do you think that social media companies and corporations at large have a role to play in stopping this as well?
I think there's two different sorts of things there when it comes to companies. I mean, just with Twitter, it was absolutely sickening to see the Chinese embassy to the US boasting about and literally admitting to these forced abortions, forced sterilizations, which are happening to real people, and people who have like siblings that I've spoken to are suffering under this. And so the fact that, for example, we all know recently Donald Trump got banned for Twitter, but the fact that this tweet stayed up for so long, thankfully, it did get taken down eventually. And it did bring widespread attention to all the lies that are coming from there and all the misinformation and all the atrocities. In terms of companies, I think social media companies absolutely have a responsibility to be careful with what they're propelling and what they're doing, because I know we have a right to get accurate information. We've seen the danger of conspiracy theories and misinformation over the last few weeks. But I think there's also just with general companies. I mean, if you look at massive companies, Apple, Zara, Nike, they're all using forced Uyghur slavery. I mean, there's estimated to be 500,000 Uyghurs making our clothes, making the clothes we wear. 20% of cotton that we import is made in the Xinjiang region or the East Turkestan region, made by Uyghur slaves. And this for me feels like absolutely disgusting that these big companies are using this, and they need to check their supply chains, and they need to look at who they're using in production. I mean, there has been some heartening news. For example, H&M has agreed to remove their links with this. So has what's the other one? Charles Tyrrell, I think, have said they're going to be disassociating from this. But even it gets even to basic goods, like for example, Heinz ketchup had links to it. I mean, some of the most everyday products that we're using are made by slaves, and this just is inhumane, and it's a real problem. And I think we need to hold companies accountable for this and make sure that this cannot happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it shows a systematic failure of our systems that we don't realise that this is occurring. And I think in many ways it's easy for, I mean, my instant reaction is that, we can all be doing more as individuals, we can all be doing more, but people have got so much to worry about, people have got so much to think about, on an individual basis in their everyday lives, that if you aren't made aware, if the media and the government aren't doing their bit to make people aware of this issue, people don't know that they're actually contributing to this, slave labor that's occurring, that they're part of this supply chain. And their impacts on this is in many ways that we're sort of by proxy allowing this to happen. I think that then the responsibility falls on government to ensure that we're doing our bit to be on the right side of history and to stand up to this. I think one of the things that you said that is most shocking to me is that we've never recognised a genocide whilst it's been occurring. So often we talk about learning our lessons, not repeating history, the dangers of not learning our lessons from history, and yet again we make the same mistakes. We make the same mistakes over and over, and we could never seem to learn that it's always right for us to be able to stand up. It's always right for us to be able to be able to do the right thing, no matter how powerful the country that is perpetrating these atrocities is. So, what do you think that you would recommend to people to do to be able to do their bit to help? Because I think there are a lot of people that want to, but maybe feel like their power is limited.
No, absolutely. And that is something that we really, really aim to push because I truly believe that there is something that every single person can do. I mean, every single person who applied to our ambassadorship team, for example, we found lots that they can do, and there is lots that people generally can do. So, for example, I think the first, probably not the answer that like everyone wants to hear, but it's really, really important first step is just learning what's going on and educating yourself. And it's so easy now with social media and internet, etc., to do that. You can follow a load of accounts. I mean, we have some stuff, but there's loads and loads of things on the internet, loads of testimonies you can hear. But that's the first step. But then it's really important, I think, to go actually above that. I mean, there's several things you can do. You can reach out to Uyghurs. That's how I got in touch initially with Uyghurs such as Rayhan Asat, who's Ekpar's sister, as well as lots and lots more. You can also, for example, create content. So there was a TikTok even, I wouldn't necessarily advise using TikTok, but there was a TikTok made by Feroza Ali, who I think, no, Feroza is someone who was talking about the Uyghurs, and it got massive, massive attention. So you can create videos, you can create infographics, you can create podcasts, you can just talking to your friends and family about it, to be honest. Big one is supporting the amendment that's coming next week. You can, if you're very like using your passion. So, for example, if you're very passionate about dance, or if you're very passionate about art, or if you're very passionate about sports, finding some way of incorporating that into looking at this issue and talking about this issue, I think is really important. I mean, Feroza did it with makeup, and whilst I don't know much about makeup, I know I'm quite passionate, for example, about table tennis. I'm thinking of ways that I can merge the two and create some sort of video for that. So there's lots and lots of different ways, and honestly, if you DM us on Instagram at Burst the Bubble UK, we can even like we're more than happy to discuss further if you're passionate about, because it's something that we really want, and something we want to make sure everyone who is prepared to actually take action on this is able to, and doesn't feel in this position that there's nothing they can do, because that's just not true. There is always things that you can do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I wanted to. You mentioned Ekpar, and was that it's important to recognise that there are over 1 million Uyghurs who are currently being persecuted. I think individual stories like Ekpar's can ignite movement, ignite change, and it's certainly, we've been aware of this issue for a while. We've been looking at ways in which we can work to pressure the government and pressure corporations into making some kind of change. And we've worked with yet again, as I said earlier, going to their events and listening to the testimonies of survivors. But Ekpar's story, to me, really motivated me, I think, to say enough is enough. We have to do something, and anything that we can do to help is good. So would you be able to maybe elaborate? I know you've done lots of work with Rayhan. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on Ekpar's story for me?
Sure. I think, having interviewed a number of Uyghurs now, I think Ekpar was definitely one that particularly, one of the many that actually particularly resonated with me. So it started, so Ekpar and Rayhan both grew up. They had a very like pretty nice, normal childhood, and they were obviously both incredibly intelligent. I mean, Rayhan was the first Uyghur ever to graduate from Harvard Law, and Ekpar, he was was also incredibly successful. He set up a big tech company, which was a bit like a cross between Facebook and Instagram, and it was for Uyghurs, and it was really, really successful. I mean, he was recognized very highly, actually, even by the Chinese government. I mean, he was a really successful entrepreneur. He was a philanthropist. He was a good, honest person and really, really kind. And he was actually even welcome to go on the State Department program, which is one of the most prominent programs that you can go on. I mean, we've had alumni which featured alumni such as not Margaret Thatcher, Theresa May, Tony Blair was on it, the Prime Minister of New Zealand was in it. I mean, you have really, really, like, really prominent people on it. And so he went on that program. and he actually went to visit Rayhan in America, and they had a really nice time. And then he went back, and he was due to actually fly out a bit later to see Rayhan when she was going to graduate from Harvard Law. Except that day never came because she was called by her parents to say, "I'm sorry, we can't come to your graduation." No explanation, nothing. She was the only one who didn't have any of her family with her at her graduation, and she pressed as to why they couldn't come. And the problem is, everything is monitored, and there's so much surveillance in China that her parents could not tell her what actually was happening and what the reality was. And then soon she realized that she had zero contact. People were unfriending her on WeChat, which is the communications network they use. And she realized that her brother had been put in a concentration camp. And it really was really, really tough for her, of course, obviously. And she couldn't go and visit her parents, and she had very little, couldn't communicate with them properly, couldn't talk to them about it. She had to go and tell Ekpar's girlfriend that she should give up on him because he's not coming back. He's in a concentration camp and he's not going to be home anytime soon, unfortunately, at that point. And it's very, very scary then, because if you speak out about it, you're worried that, I know what the Chinese government going to do. They might retaliate and hurt my brother even more. And you hear all of these disgusting and horrific things coming out of the concentration camps and what they're doing for the people there. So, but eventually she said she thought, like, enough is enough. I can't do this any longer. I have to speak out. And I remember meeting her actually for the first time, and just the way she spoke and her story was so resonant because she literally felt like she could have been one of us. I mean, she was particularly resonant, I think, with teenagers and people like that because she didn't look like talk down on us at all. We were talking to each other as sort of equals, and it was really, really powerful. I mean, sometimes when you do interviews, it's difficult when someone says something so emotional that you're not quite sure how to respond. And I think that happened to me actually quite a lot because I was just thinking, I have two little brothers. They're both like, one's 2 years younger than me, one's 4 years younger than me. And I just kept thinking, like, thank God I'm able to be with them. Thank goodness I'm not in this situation, which she is. She always describes it as sort of a lottery. She just got the wrong lottery ticket and grew up in this dictatorial Orwellian state under the Chinese Communist Party. And I remember the following days was actually a very high Jewish holidays. And I remember thinking, like, how lucky I am to actually be able to spend this with my family, and how she's not able to. So that was something that I kept thinking about, and how we had to push further. So it's something that we've definitely taken up and pushed over the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, she is an incredible person and incredibly brave. The work that she's doing to free her brother, I think, is so courageous, and their story is, like you say, in many ways, I think hearing about it for the first time, you have to take a step back, and it really hits home as to how real this situation is. You know, you hear these numbers, it's difficult to imagine. There's so much denial even now with how prominent and in the open this genocide is. But hearing this story, it does hit home as to how real this is, how it impacts individuals, in what way it impacts individuals, that it can happen
Yeah,
to anybody.
puts the face on genocide.
Yeah, exactly, and how, like you say, it could be anybody. It could be anybody. Nobody's safe from the regime that they're at the that are in power. The Chinese Communist Party. Recently, I made a video about 2 weeks ago. Even somebody as prominent as Jack Ma, who's currently, who's been missing since October, I believe, isn't safe from the regime. So we have to keep on working, and it's why I wanted to talk to you so much, and why I'm so appreciative of the work that you do, because I think it gives other people courage to act as well. And I think that's definitely what I've got from Rayhan. You've had some campaigns, some videos recently that have been incredibly successful, and I wanted to know what you sort of had planned for the future now. What were your going forward? What are you planning on doing? Is there any new campaigns, or is it just working harder and better at the campaigns that you've got on at the moment?
So this is really exciting because we found the Ekpar campaign actually has been really successful. I mean, our campaign, for those who haven't seen it, was essentially you take a picture holding up the free Ekpar poster and you send it to us, or you can message it to us and also post it on your social media. Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure I saw you took part, and your team as well. And we've got photos from I think now 16 different countries, which has been remarkable from really rich and really prominent people from all over the world. And we actually, it was Ekpar's birthday on January the 5th, and obviously that's going to be one of the hardest times of the year when it's someone else's, when it's your brother's birthday you can't celebrate with. So we used some of the photos to create a birthday video, and that did really well.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the campaigns that we're doing, and we're hopefully going to wrap that up by Chinese New Year and create a big collage and take that to lots of media outlets and get more publicity about the case and more support. And it's just like that's another really easy way for people to get involved. I mean, it takes a minute or something to
So
do,
easy.
and and it's really powerful. And I've seen how much Rayhan's appreciated each photo and how much it means. We post like a different one each day, so it's been really effective. We're also hosting events. I mean, we had one recently with Rayhan, which we got about 100 youth turning up to, and she spoke, and we did break our arms, and then we took like a big group photo of like all 70 or 80 of us who were there. And we're doing that. We're also organising future events. We're doing again something for Holocaust Memorial Day, linking that in with what's going on. We've got some t-shirts that we've which have like the free Ekpar. I can actually quickly show you.
Absolutely.
In a minute. So we've got these for our ambassadors, and we're using these to just show again our support, because it is putting a face on genocide. I mean, when you say statistics like 3 million are in concentration camps, or there's like women are being forcibly raped and sterilized, it's difficult to really emotionally connect with them. But when you see a face and a person and a name, I find it much easier. I mean, even Stalin says, what is it? One death is a tragedy, a million statistic, and we're trying to make it so people can actually emotionally connect and understand like the scale of the suffering that is going on. And I think that's really important, and I think it's been actually quite successful, judging from how lots of my friends and the people we've seen online have responded.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you've got more and more plans coming up. I mean, I think it's ever so important that the momentum continues, and that people keep working hard. And like you say, it can be small. The smallest ideas can be the best, and sometimes it's so easy to sort of go, oh, that's too simplistic. And what you, I think, have managed to achieve, and I just grabbed my poster here. It is so simple. It's so simple for people to print off one of these, take a picture, send some to friends, send some to colleagues, tell them the story, get them to do the same, raise awareness, and just by doing that, we can reach so many more people. We can get so many more people to learn about what's going on, and realize the importance of what's going on. And we'll continue to support you all with what you're doing, and hopefully within the next few days we're going to have some announcements. There's an announcement in the morning. Dominic Raab will be making an announcement about increasing sanctions, I believe, some form of sanctions on the Chinese government over this. So we'll see what that entails, but obviously it's incredibly important that we just continue working hard and working to to stop and hold to account the Chinese Communist Party. So was there anything that you wanted to plug? I mean, tell people where they can go to find out more information in your social medias.
Yeah, I mean, I can put all the social media links. We're on YouTube. We've got Burst of Bubble UK. It's the same as if you type in on Instagram, where we have infographics on the issue. I was also just going to say, even if you don't have a printer, which is a problem for some people, you can literally just hold it up on a tablet or something like that and send it to us. And we'd really appreciate it, and also send it to your friends. Like, we've got the podcast and the interviews with Rayhan on our YouTube and on our Instagram as well, and we've got lots of videos on our Twitter, so definitely go and check those out. And just again, thank you very much for having us on. And if you've got anyone has any questions from watching this, please don't hesitate to DM us on Instagram or anything like that, because we love getting in touch with people and making these connections. And even if you want to speak to any Uyghurs like yourself, then like I've had plenty who really appreciated people speaking to them and people reaching out to them, because they've said that's what gives them hope. And so that's something that I think should definitely be encouraged. So that's all I'd say, to be honest. But thank you for having me, and I think you're doing a great job with publicizing this, and everything. It's an important message.
No, I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate your time. So yeah, keep working hard. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everyone, please get involved, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.